Hello, everyone. Welcome. Come in and find a seat. There's plenty of room. Don't be shy. So welcome, everyone, to VBSR's Southern Vermont Summit. My name is Russ Ellick. I'm the Communication and Membership Manager here at Vermont Businesses for Social Responsibility. I'll be, for lack of a better word, your MC for the afternoon. For those of you who don't know, VBSR is a statewide business association dedicated to the advancement of a business ethic that values not only profit, but how we treat our employees, interact with the community, and how we take care of our environment as well. What began as a grassroots movement in the late 80s and early 90s has grown into one of the largest business groups in Vermont, and this year we are very pleased to be celebrating 25 years of change making and doing business differently. Events like today are one way that we try to advance that better business ethic. We're thrilled to have Amy Hall with us today, and we're thrilled that each of you has taken time from your busy schedules to think about corporate social responsibility, in particular the clothing industry. The truth is, VBSR really couldn't put on events like this without the support of our members and our sponsors. So in particular, our champion members support the organization at the highest level, giving us peace of mind to be able to do different things like this. So please help us in thanking our champion members, All Earth Renewables, Ben & Jerry's, Dinsey Net McKendrew, Gardner's Supply, Green Mountain Power, Keurig Green Mountain, Marketing Partners, New Chapter, Renewable NRG Systems, 7th Generation, Sun Common, VSECU, and Volanti Printers. There's a lot. The more events we do, though, it becomes clear that we do need more help pulling off some of these things. So to that end, we owe a debt of gratitude to the people who stepped up to the plate to underwrite today's event. And a lot of those people are set up in the booths, so during the networking portion, if you could visit them and say thank you, that'd be wonderful. But today's underwriters are B-Lab, Brattleboro Savings and Loan, Downs Racklin Martin, Let's Grow Kids, Merritt and Moulton, Vermont Community Loan Fund, Vermont Kitchen Supply, and Vermont Public Radio. And last but not least, we're very grateful to National Life Group for stepping up today and serving as our Keynote Underwriter. National Life Group is a trade name representing a diversity of family of financial services companies that believes experiences are what make life worth living. They help individuals, families, businesses pursue their financial goals through insurance, annuity, and investment products. And you can learn more, of course, at nationallife.com. So thank you, National Life. Now today we're proud to say that for the last year and a half we've really been focused on trying to green up our events. So we're trying to make today's event as close to zero waste as possible, partnering with our good friend, the Green Up Girl. So this evening, please remember to return your name tags as you leave. We will reduce, reuse, recycle. We have several bins set up for recycling, for food, for composting, so everything at the front of the room, and she'll be there to help you out. Now we also are grateful to CS. She runs our Southern Vermont chapter. So if you're doing business in Brattleboro or in the area, we invite you to join us on December 9th. We'll be at Artisan Web and Design here in Brattleboro. So following Amy's presentation, we'll do a Q&A, and then I'll present VBSR's annual meeting. I'll try to be brief. And then we'll gather for a networking get-together in the room in which you registered. So with that, I'm going to shut up because I'm really excited to hear from Amy. I'd like to introduce and thank Jacob Park, who was instrumental in getting Amy here. Jacob is a professor at Green Mountain College. He's a VBSR board member, and he is the chair of the VBSR program committee. Jacob?
I know you want to hear from Amy, so I'll keep this really short. But I want to say just a couple of things about Amy. Number one, I think she has the coolest job title of anybody, Director of Social Conscience. I'd love to know whether that was her idea or somebody else like that. So how does one get a title like that? So let's know about that. The other thing that I wanted to mention about Amy too, that she's been working at EILEEN Fisher for 22 years. And the reason I think that's important is because as we sort of celebrate our organization's 25th anniversary, I think it's really important to take stock of the trajectory and the arc of the revolution, the evolution of this term, corporate social responsibility. So I really value the input and the perspective of someone like Amy, because she brings with it not simply just something that she read somewhere and set to implement it, but really an arc, 20 plus years of history of implementing is something really important that all of us care deeply about. So I really think it's a great opportunity to learn from the experience of EILEEN Fisher, as well as from Amy. So thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, everybody. Before I start, I just want to mention a couple things. First of all, although I don't live in Vermont, nor do I work in Vermont, nor do I come here very often. I do come about once a year. My family skis in Waitsfield at Sugarbush every year, and we're members of the Swiss Ski Club of New York, which is based in Waitsfield. So we know that part of the state really well. And there's a number of people in this audience that I'm really close to who are Vermonters, so maybe there's some kind of honorary membership I can get. But I just wanted to start with Flip Brown, who's right here. You know him probably with Culture. Oh my God, what's the name of your... Business Culture Consultancy. I know Flip, I don't know his work that well, but we are members of the Social Venture Network, and we are in a peer circle together, and we've been sharing our deepest, darkest secrets together for a number of years already, and we've become very close friends. So really glad to see Flip. And Yola Carlo is our B Lab consultant, because we are trying to become a B Corporation. I'm really hoping, really hoping. We just are putting the finishing touches on our impact assessment this week. So I think my friends from EILEEN Fisher, Northampton, and Manchester, is that right? Because I don't know those guys yet, are here, and you have heard it first. So we're trying to become a B Corporation, which is really cool. Who else? Oh, Pat Heffernan. So Pat and I sit on the board of the American Sustainable Business Council in Washington, so that's a cool connection. And I've got honorary members here, so not real members, but my good friend Sarah Schley, who is our consultant at EILEEN Fisher on our sustainability work, and she's been very instrumental in what I'm about to share with you. Sarah lives just south of the border, but she's here today, and Erica Wheeler, who's another SVN member. So lots and lots of folks here that I'm really familiar with, and Spence Putnam, who was my advisor at Green Mountain College. So where are you, Spence? Oh, there you are. Yeah. Okay, so enough with that. I was asked to come share with you a little about sustainability and the apparel industry, a topic that apparently has never been broached at the VBSR gatherings. So I'll share with you a little about what I know through my work at EILEEN Fisher, a little bit about our journey, and at the end when I take questions, I do want to let you know I'm not able to stay for the reception because I have to drive all the way back to New York. So if you have questions, get them in at the Q&A session, or I have my contact information that'll be put up at the end. So with that, I want to just start with a question. How many people here work in the apparel industry? I have a few plants here. You're supposed to raise your hand. Okay, that's good. And the rest of you all wear clothes, right? Okay. Okay, good. We're on a good start. So that's our common thread. No pun intended. As you know, in about 2 weeks, we're going to hit a very important landmark in apparel industry, in the apparel industry world, Black Friday. So we're all going to be out shopping for our beginning to think about holiday shopping, etc. So when you're out doing your shopping, I wonder what sorts of things you think about when you're making your purchases, especially between Thanksgiving and Christmas or Hanukkah, whatever your holiday is. Anyone want to shout out attributes that you think about when you're making your purchases? What?
Local.
Local. Good.
Fair trade.
Fair trade. Oh, we got such an enlightened audience. I'm not used to this. This is Vermont. What?
Are they going to like it?
Are they going to like it? Okay. And what are the things that you'll base that on?
Depends on the person.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anything else? Comfort. Color.
Warmth.
Warmth. Well, this is so interesting. Not one person said price, which thank you.
We're all thinking it.
Okay.
I almost said secondhand. Does that count?
Yeah, secondhand is a good answer. Thank you. Okay, so just keep some of those qualities in mind as we go along. So I'm going to have to just signal, I guess. Oh, I have a thing. Thank you. Thank you. Forgot about that. The green one? Excellent. So you can't see that, but in the bottom corner it says 1984. So we're going to transport ourselves back to 1984. That was the year after I graduated from college, so I was just entering the workforce. And for me at that time, pop culture was really big. And where's the machine? Okay, there we go. Madonna, Like a Virgin, very popular. Punk rock, actually I was a huge punk rock fan, believe it or not. And Michael Jackson, when he set his hair on fire during the Pepsi commercial. Ronald Reagan was president, and I believe unemployment was at about 8% that year. So just get yourself into that mindset. This is a picture, I wish it was a little higher up, of what I had to think about getting dressed as that year. I remember having to shop for clothes and feeling like, we were all trying to fit into kind of a man's world, but try to find our own way to do it as a woman. And this is the climate in which EILEEN founded EILEEN Fisher. So she founded the company based on 4 simple shapes. She was frustrated, of course, at the time with a lack of options for women that made it easy for her to get dressed. She founded the company with a commitment to natural fibers, cotton, silk, wool, linen, with timeless designs and with clothing that lasted more than a few years, we hoped. So those were in her mind, the early commitment to sustainability. She would not have called it sustainability, but those are the attributes that were really important to her. This is an ad from 1994. So in the first several years of the company, we tried a lot of different things. We tried cotton grown in colors. That's known as fox fibers. We didn't have to dye it. We tried fleece made of recycled plastic water bottles. We introduced our first organic cotton yoga tank in the year 2004, which seems kind of late now that I think about it, but for us that was a huge deal. And all throughout this time, we were kind of chugging along, trying to think of things that we could do to kind of push the limit. But I will say it did not take. Is there a way to not have this thing buzz? Like if I move over here, maybe? That's a little better, not much. We were lacking in an overall kind of overarching strategic approach to sustainability, but we moved along little by little. And about 5 or 6 years ago, we introduced what we now call Green EILEEN, which was our clothing take-back system. We take back previously worn EILEEN Fisher clothes, and we resell the things that we can sell in standalone Green EILEEN stores and our company stores, Manchester being one of them. This was a poster that appeared in our stores about 4 or 5 years ago. And in one of our stores in New York City, this poster caused a great deal of alarm in the store across the street. They thought we were trying to get the shoplifters to bring the clothes back. So it had its pluses and minuses, its ups and downs. Then as we were going along, we started communicating more intentionally with our customer. This symbol we all know as what? An ampersand, yes, it's an and also, but we call it our ampersand campaign. And whenever you see that symbol on our website or on a hang tag, it tells the customer there's something more to the clothing than just the fabrication and the look and feel. There's something organic or where it was made or some special message. So over the years, we've slowly been increasing our communication and our commitment to all of these values, environmental and human rights values. So then, in the year 2012 was an important year for us. EILEEN went to her first supply chain visit since the founding of the company in 1984. And the thing that really shocked her that year when she took that visit, she went to Los Angeles and China, was when she learned about the global water crisis. And I have to say she came back completely changed. She really she threw the gauntlet down and said, we're not doing enough. We need to make bigger change, and we need to do it faster. And we can't accept any excuses, and you'll see that come up again in a minute. So when you look at this map, this is already a couple years old. This is the Global Water Crisis map put out by the World Resources Institute. All of the red on this map illustrates where there's already a lack of water, potable water in the area. So what's really concerning to us as a company is that most of these red areas represent where we manufacture our clothing or where we source fiber. Many people don't realize that as an apparel company, 90% of our materials come from a farm originally, whether it's an animal, hair, or a grown fiber like cotton or linen. So for example, in Western U.S., we manufacture clothes. We also source organic cotton there. In South America, we both grow organic cotton for some of our fair trade sweaters, and we source wood for viscose. In Southern Africa, we source wood for tencel. In Australia, we source merino wool from farms, many, many farms. In China and Mongolia, we source cashmere, and we make a lot of our clothing, and we also source silk. There's a lot of impact. We source clothing from India as well. And for us, this becomes a question of whether we can be a sustainable business going forward. Can we continue doing business as usual, even in the next 10 or 15 years? The statistic related to this map is that by the year 2030, the world's demand for water will exceed supply by 40%. And that is not a good message for a business like ours that depends on water. So this brings it home in a different way. This shows the California water drought year by year since March 2011, just in 5 years, how much it has changed. And my feeling about this is it's already not business as usual in California. So that's what we really have to think about in terms of the entire world. Anybody have any idea what this is a picture of? A lake? That's not the answer. Utah? No. It's the Colorado River Basin. I can't remember, it's obviously in the southern part. I can't remember exactly where this is, but my point about this is the change is happening. It's happening fast. There was a quote by a conservation writer that says something to the effect of, our resources are already disappearing before our eyes, and it may be too late in some places for us to change, to do anything about it. Now, I mentioned something earlier in my presentation about wood. Anybody have an idea how wood is related to the apparel industry? Tencel and lyocell and rayon, right, okay. All of those things in viscose come from wood pulp. And right now, something along the lines of 70 million trees are taken down every year to create those fibers. And of that 70 million, 70% of the tree is wasted in the processing the wood pulp. So that's a ton of waste, a huge amount of waste, and 30% of that of the wood that's taken down comes from endangered and ancient forests in Canada, Indonesia, and Brazil. And so whenever we buy anything that's made of rayon or viscose, we have to think twice about our impact. This is pretty clear what this is. So as a company, as a textile and apparel company, we often don't think about the waste that we produce. There's both waste that we produce in the manufacturing process and waste that our customers produce at the end of use phase. I think there's a statistic out right now. It's 13 million tons of textile waste are produced by the US every single year. Only 15% of that is recycled. That means 11 million tons of textile waste go into our landfills every year. And then when you think about how this clothing or whatever, it could be automobile seat covers or other kinds of textiles, but they're by and large dyed using chemicals and processes that are not friendly to the environment. So we're going to try an experiment here. My friend Russ is going to tee this up. Has anybody here seen the true cost? Okay, just a couple. Yes, so hold on, I'm going to get this to you in a second. We don't have speakers, so we're going to actually hold the mic up to the computer and hope this works. This is a 2-minute trailer of this pretty powerful documentary that just came out in May of this year by a director named Andrew Morgan, and it talks about the impact of the apparel industry on both the environmental and social sides as instigated by the Rana Plaza incident in Bangladesh a few years back. So just wanted to give you a taste of this film. It's available on Netflix, and if you want to learn more about the apparel industry, this is a great resource.
We communicate who we are through clothing. It is fundamentally a part of what we wish to communicate about ourselves.
We used to have a system, a fashion system. That has absolutely nothing to do with the fashion industry today. It has been reinvented.
It's based on materialism. The problem is that comes at a really high price.
Garment factory collapsed, killing more than 1,000.
Clashes between clothes factory workers and riot police in Cambodia.
Last November, 112 people were killed in another major factory fire. 30,000 Chinese workers have been on strike.
Garment workers in Bangladesh paying the price for cheap clothing.
Well, the promise of globalization was that it was going to be a win-win, that consumers in the rich world would get cheaper goods and people in the poorer parts of the world would get jobs, and that those jobs would give them an opportunity to work their way out of poverty.
This enormous, rapacious industry that is generating so much profit, why is it that it is unable to support millions of its workers properly?
The actual business model is completely unsustainable. Unless you change that model, you can't change anything.
When everything is concentrated on making profits, what you see is that human rights, the environment, workers' rights get lost.
My God, we can do better than this.
We've been hosting some viewings of The True Cost and some panel discussions, and it's quite a powerful film. It's full length. So we'll go on to, okay, so out of all of that came what we now call Vision 2020, and this is EILEEN Fisher's commitment to have the least environmental impact and the most social value through its products and practices possible. 2020, the year 2020, is a step towards that. It's not the ultimate end goal. We have some goals around 2025 and 2030. I'm wearing on my wrist, this is a Sarah Schley trick, our consultant. I have a rubber band here, and this is one of my favorite tools. She's taught us this. I take no credit. But when we stretch this rubber band, the top represents our vision, and the bottom represents where we are now, and in the middle is all that tension between where we are and where we want to get to. And we're going to slowly creep up there. We're never going to quite reach our vision because our vision is going to keep moving. We're going to keep setting our goals even higher. But I really love this because it's a reminder of the journey we need to take, and that it is possible to get closer, and we just have to keep working at it. So this is the wording that's on our website right now. And this is, oh crap, there's still one letter missing. We're having a little trouble getting everything to fit. We have 4 goals on the environmental side and 4 goals on the social side. And I know it's hard to see the bottom of this, so I will read them to you. The 4, we call them riverbanks, and the reason is that we are based on the Hudson River in New York, right literally on the banks of the river. So when we think of a river, they have two sides that keep the water flowing straight through, right? So they are the guides to us. So we call these our riverbanks. You can think of them as our goals. We have goals around materials, chemistry, carbon, and water. And materials is where we think of our greatest impact as an apparel company. So we have a lot of goals in the materials side. Goals like 100% organic cotton, 100% organic linen, zero viscose by the year 2020. That zero viscose is really problematic because it represents about 20% of our sales right now, and we don't have a viable substitute for it yet. In 5 years, we have to come up with a viable substitute for viscose. We have goals around leather and animal products, etc. Chemistry is all about the dyes, mostly about the dyes that go into our fabrics. Carbon is all about becoming carbon neutral and creating greater efficiencies. And water, of course, is about not only how we use water, but the cleanliness of that water, the quality of that water. And then on the social side, so we have social riverbanks as well. We've got 4 of them. These 3 make a lot of sense for most people: fair wages and benefits, worker and community happiness, and workers' voice. So they're not the usual ones that you might hear in a company, but for us, they really represent worker empowerment and an ability for a worker in our supply chain to achieve his or her goals. That's what we want for everybody, every individual in our supply chain. Conscious business practices is actually turning the mirror on ourselves and saying, we're not going to get to any of these other things until we create our own efficiencies and look at our own internal practices and the unintended consequences that every decision we make has on our supply chain. All these years, so Jacob mentioned I've been with the company for 22 years. For 20 of those years, we've been taking our code of conduct. Some people may have heard of it. It's called SA 8000. We go in the factories, we hang it on the wall, we tell them to follow it. We walk away, and 6 months later, we come back in and check on them. We have the audit, and maybe we provide some remediation and training. Oh, stop laughing. And then, yes, it took us 20 years to figure out that doesn't work very well. And what we did realize is, even at the design stage, when they change a design, they add a placket, they remove a zipper, whatever it is, there's a whole domino effect that goes back down to the supplier level and has implications for the supplier's ability to meet those SA 8000 guidelines around working hours, fair wages, transparency, things like that. So we have a lot of work in order to clean all of that up. This is a map so Sarah, I'm going to keep mentioning Sarah because she came to us and taught us how to do system mapping. This is an example of a map that actually started when we wanted to look at our carbon footprint. And when we stepped back to look at what was causing us to have such a big carbon footprint, we recognize it's because we ship a lot of things by air from China to the US. And then we said, well, why do we do that? And we realized it's because of our deadlines, that in the apparel industry, things are very fast-paced, and you've got to get things in the stores at a certain time. And every time we make those design changes, or every time we make a new order, place a new order with the factory, or we change an order, we update an order, we change a color, we add a color, we take away a color, all of that has an implication. And so this map, I'm not going to explain it in great detail. The pink area is our design function. The orange area is our sales function. And the green is the supply chain. And what this shows us are the key leverage points. Where can we inject some extra resources and energy to have the most impact? And we have been so excited to learn this tool that we are sharing it with other people whenever we go out and talk to people outside the company. We're telling everybody, you've got to learn how to do system mapping. You've got to learn where your leverage points are as a company, as an apparel company, or any other kind of company for the greatest change. We realize if we can work on fair wages, worker voice, worker satisfaction, and conscious business practices, those social riverbanks, that we will be able to fix a lot of this stuff in here, and vice versa. The conscious business practices input impacts all of this. We have a huge initiative in the company right now called Supply Chain Excellence, and it all emanates from this one map. And it is now moved from our sustainability strategy to our entire business strategy, where we're talking about overall efficiencies and relieving stress in many places in the system. So here we are. This is a fall 15 ad where the idea is you don't need a lot of clothes, you just need the right ones. This is where we're tackling the idea of consumption. How many sweaters does one person need? And we feel very strongly that if you just get the one or two that you need, maybe per year, maybe per season, it depends on how you wear your clothes, that's pretty much all you need. You don't need 5 or 10 a year. And this is where we talk about really wanting to look at every thread and every individual in the supply chain, where we talk about no excuses. This was the ad that came out in February that introduced our Vision 2020 goals. And oh my gosh, that's okay. Excuse me while I redecorate a little bit. Our vision is for an industry where human rights and sustainability are not the effect of a particular initiative, but the cause of a business well run, where social and environmental injustices are not unfortunate outcomes, but reasons to do things differently, where excuses are ignored and action is taken. We're working toward a world in which the clothes you love to wear create nothing but love. And so for EILEEN, this is the key sentence for me is down here. We don't want sustainability to be our edge. We want it to be universal. So we're not doing this just for ourselves. We want, as a company, to influence other companies to take similar action. We want to build a community of like-minded, committed people, whether in the apparel industry or beyond. We're not that big of a company. We have 40 first-tier suppliers, 40 suppliers of all the clothing we make in a year. That's not enough to make an impact in the world. And so we carry our message to other apparel companies, to you all who are running businesses here in this state, wanting people to really think about their own actions and every unintended consequence in their supply chain. And in the end, what we really want to do is raise awareness among our customers and consumers in general. So I think you all perhaps represent the exception to the rule. A lot of our customers walk in the stores and may not necessarily respond to the values that we like to talk about on the hang tags. They come in looking for a great piece of clothing that fits well, feels good, etc. We really want to engage them in the values. How can we get them to come in and ask for that clothing that was certified dyed, or that organic piece, or the piece that was made under fair working conditions? This piece on the left is an EILEEN Fisher organic cotton t-shirt. The piece on the right is a conventional t-shirt, not EILEEN Fisher. And our task right now is to figure out how to engage our customer in the t-shirt on the left. And we have a working group that's set up to start talking about that in the next few months. So this is actually a big challenge for us. And that brings us to today. Here we are again, 2 weeks away from Black Friday. And I'm hoping that when you hear that, now that you've heard some of these messages, you might think differently about how you shop, but also about how you might inspire change among your own business partners, your own supply chain, your own customers, whoever it is that you come into contact with. And I would simply ask you, what's one simple conversation you might have, one simple change you might make in your own daily practices to move this work forward? So thank you. So I've been asked to take questions, and again, I'm just going to say it one more time. I'm not staying after this, so please tell me who you are when you stand up, and I'm going to give you the mic.
Oh, I have to stand up?
Or you don't have to stand up. But
okay. Anyway, I'll stand up. My name is Becky Himlin. I am Director of Development and Planning for a nonprofit called SEVCA, or Southeastern Vermont Community Action. One of the things that we do is we have a few thrift stores that were intended to both help supply free clothing to some people who desperately need it, as well as to help out the rest of our operations, which include homelessness prevention, fuel assistance, a number of things. So quite a while ago, I don't know, 2007 or so, we started textile recycling to not only service our thrift stores, but also many other thrift stores and municipalities in our 2 counties. And the problem now has happened where we cannot sustain the textile recycling anymore. The price has dropped from 16 cents a pound to 2.5 cents a pound in the space of a year. We're gonna have to sell our textile baler. We're gonna these things. So how do we wanted to be responsible. We wanted to keep, tens of thousands of, tons of waste out of the system, but this is, and also I'm not saying that the way that things were recycled was the best way, but I wanted your ideas or other people, because it was mostly, going to intermediaries. They would sell the things for reuse elsewhere, other countries, that's also a carbon footprint, but still, the point is that right here in Southern Vermont, we have that issue, right? And we're supposed to be recycling textiles, so.
I'm just a clarifying question. What are you recycling them into?
Well, no, it's mostly we're bailing them, the things that are of good enough quality, and then those are then shipped and reused, sold in other countries or wherever there's demand. So that's mainly how it has happened to keep them out of landfills.
Okay, so that's a really that's an interesting question. It's complicated. We don't have all the answers yet. We also we've accumulated many thousands of pieces that can't be resold through our Green EILEEN take-back system. About 50% of the clothes can be resold because they're good enough quality. 50% can't, and with that 50%, we store it. And we either find ways to upcycle it into new and interesting products. We teach workshops in some of our locations how to make lampshades and rugs and new things out of old stuff. But that only just barely makes a dent. And we are committed to not donate it because we don't know where it goes. And we don't want to disrupt the economies of those countries where a lot of our donated clothing does go. So we are working with and waiting to hear about what's happening on the, see, when you say textile recycling, I think turning the old textiles into new fiber. That's what we're banking on, in a way, hoping that we can use our old textiles to actually turn it into new product. And there are a lot of technologies that are on the cusp of becoming viable, and they're not quite there yet. So meanwhile, we're holding on to our stuff, and I don't know if you have that option. Maybe if you take my contact information and write to me, I can give you the names of a couple of organizations that I know of that do have responsible end-of-use options for collected clothing. Okay? Anybody else? Oh, Flip.
Hi, I'm still Flip. When I met EILEEN at the Social Venture Network 25th anniversary, I told her I'd be the first in line to buy the Elmer Fisher line. And I know that hasn't happened yet. So as men, other than buying our spouses, partners, or girlfriends, actually probably only one of the above, is there a men's clothing line that is doing something similar that you're partnering with or talking to?
Wow, that wasn't the question. I thought you were going to ask me if we were going to be creating a men's clothing line. I am not aware of one. I'm looking at my store partners. Any ideas over there? Patagonia, yeah, but like in the fashion-y world. Now? NAU? Perhaps, yeah? Okay, sorry. I'll have to think about that one a little bit.
Is Elmer Fisher going to happen?
Elmer Fisher is not in the works any time in the near future. Sorry.
Hi, Carrie Seacrest with Watershed Coaching, and I have two questions. One is around what's been an easy win with this, and also what's the really hard, long. This one is going to be an uphill battle. And then I'm also really curious about. I'm inspired by your interest in kind of inspiring the rest of the fashion industry. And are you in conversations? Like, what does it look like at that level to create influence?
Okay, that's a lot of questions. So easy win. So I mentioned that some of our materials goals involve 100% organic cotton and 100% organic linen by the year 2020. We're poised to reach those two goals. The cotton goal might be reached next year, but we're pretty sure for sure by 2017, and the linen goal by 2018. So that's really exciting. We've made some great strides in our energy efficiencies. So simply by changing really simple things, changing light bulbs, changing practices, things like that. In terms of, so one of the really difficult ones is the living wage one, because of course it costs money. And there are all kinds of challenges making sure that the money actually gets to the workers. And we've heard from other brands who have tried things like this, that even when you do manage to raise their wages, their world of expenses actually increases. When people get wind that the workers are earning a higher wage, then their rent may go up. Their landlord may actually start charging them a little more, or cost of local whatever they buy in the market will go up. So it's really complicated, and that definitely requires more than just us getting involved. It involves policy. So we're involved at the ASBC level, American Sustainable Business Council, on raising the minimum wage here in the States on that policy, and other workplace policies that could support our US-based suppliers. We have about 22% of our clothes are made in the States. So those are some of the challenges that require multiple strategies. As far as other conversations, we are great friends with Patagonia. We consult with them all the time, I would say, quite often on a number of fronts. EILEEN is very vocal. So any of you who have ever seen EILEEN or heard of her, the EILEEN of EILEEN Fisher, she is known to be quite an introvert and is not comfortable in the public speaking space, but because of this work, she has found her voice, and she's making an effort to really get out in public and speak to the people that she considers her counterparts, other leaders of apparel companies, other leaders of businesses in general, women leaders, pretty much anybody that she feels are influencers in the world. And so she's been truly a staunch advocate of this work and will continue to be. She's been in the media quite a lot this year. And then we are members of a lot of different consortia, apparel industry and other kinds of business consortia, where we are involved in efforts that are cross-brand and cross-industry, because we have greater impact that way. So around different fibers, things like that. That's a quite bigger answer than you wanted. Anything else? Oh, I'm going to run back here. I'm like Oprah. Here.
Marky Reed with Career Networks. I'm curious about what you're doing to change the conversation around the level of consumption, the number of pieces, particularly in women's fashion. There's such a compulsion to buy a whole new wardrobe almost every year. What is it you're doing, and how do you see you're making a difference?
Okay, and while I'm here, why don't you ask your question too, and then I can just.
Yeah, I'm Laura Freed. I've spent the last year working with a Vermont-based group called Institute for Sustainable Communities, developing curriculum for their ready-made garment program, educating environmental health safety trainers in Bangladesh. So what I just wanted to share and also ask about was just giving countries, working with trade groups in different countries that represent sustainable manufacturing, I feel is really important, because everyone wants to do good and everyone wants to be around for the long term. And what I found was that people need hope and they need examples. And there was one blue jean factory in Dhaka, or outside of Dhaka, Bangladesh, that was actually like gold certified LEED factory, like one of the most incredible factories in the world, and no one had heard of it. So just sharing those stories really helps inspire the change makers on the ground in those countries. And so I just wanted to hear about what you might be doing at the country level.
Okay. Yep. Okay, so first question on affecting, influencing consumerism. So that ad that I showed was our very subtle way of stepping into that conversation, maybe a little like too subtle for some people, I don't know. But we actually have a conversation internally about how big do we need to be as a company, how many sales do we need to make, how many pieces of clothing do we need to sell in order to stay profitable, because we have to be profitable in order to stay in business and in order to carry out this work. And we haven't yet formed a kind of cohesive strategy, at least as far as I'm thinking, around that consumerism piece, other than to say, I know that when people go into our stores, if something doesn't look right, if I keep looking, because you're like right in my viewpoint, they're gonna say don't buy that piece because it's not right for you. And I've heard that people have had that experience in our stores. And so we as a company are not all about just making the sale for the sake of making the sale. But I know what you're talking about. It's like the broader conversation. I would say right now it's an aspiration of ours, and we haven't come up with a cohesive strategy. And if it's something you're interested in talking about, I'd love to hear more afterwards. As far as other countries go, I would say that the extent of our influence right now is with either the suppliers or the vendors, or in one case, the sourcing agent that we use in China. We have not gotten involved at the trade association or the policy level. We are involved with some NGOs here and there. We're kind of small still, so I feel like our biggest leverage is really in coming together with, so for example, the Sustainable Apparel Coalition and what they might be doing in different countries or different areas of the world. Anybody over here? I feel like I've been on that side. Anything? Okay. Yes.
I could have run to you, but
that's okay.
Okay. Jacob Park, I'm a board member and teaches at Greenmount College. Amy, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your customers. I'm very curious about it in terms of, you kind of alluded to it with Mark Libby's question about sort of that's an aspirational kind of thing. It seems like we all want to do good, as a number of people pointed out, but also, no matter what people professes, there's a certain price point which they're not going to go beyond. So I was wondering if that has changed over the years with the kind of the tweaking of your brand, tweaking of sort of going. And I know you're trying to engage your customers on it, but obviously, if they want to care, they could certainly follow up on that. I'm curious, has that customer sentiment about what EILEEN Fisher is, has that changed at all? And have you heard anything about in terms of that, because of Vision 2020, they're willing to pay a little bit more for it, or anything like that? It seems like in the end, in order to be a for-profit business, you still need to do all the things and make this all work.
So this is kind of the $20,000 question for us. Thank you so much. What I can say, I don't know, my store comrades over here may have another opinion. We feel that we've pretty much maxed out on the price that we can charge for our clothing. Our hope is not to have to increase that price anymore, because while some of these initiatives will cost money, we also hope to find savings through efficiencies, et cetera. And our customer, when she comes into our store or buys online or wherever she buys, is aware, generally speaking, of things that we do that mean something to her, that are values-based. She may not be able to articulate them. She may not even ask, mostly she won't ask about them, in most stores probably. And she probably won't want to get into a conversation about it. She just knows that we stand for something that makes her feel good. So in a way you could say that we make, so when EILEEN founded the company, one of the things that she wanted to do was to simplify women's lives by giving them clothes that are easy to put together. You could walk in, you always knew things were going to go together. So in a way, adding these values to that purchase experience is an extension of that. We've made it easy for her to do the right thing, to make a purchase, to buy clothes that respect people, respect the environment. She doesn't have to worry about it because we've already worried about it for her. So in a way, that's kind of where we are right now. But what I'd like to see is for her to actually take a step further and start making changes in other areas of her life. How does she use water? How does she use energy? what are the other purchases she makes. That's kind of the challenge we have ahead of us. Anything else? Oh, all the way in the back. Thank you.
I'm Janice Warren from One Report, and I'm really interested to hear more about how you strike the balance between your performance and achieving your Vision 2020 goals and the educating and persuading of consumers that you do a lot of on your website, and you talk a lot about the philosophy behind what you do and what you think other people should be thinking about versus the reporting on performance.
You have just struck another gold mine. So this is really new for us. We just went public with this commitment in February of this year. We haven't even finished one full year of it. And in the several months since February, we've been creating the metrics that we need to have against those 8 riverbanks, the 4 environmental and the 4 social. And so we expect to have our first set of metrics available for the public in early 2016. So right after the end of the year, we'll tally things up. So that's one thing. And then on an annual basis, we will have more and more of those as we get into this further. So I imagine they'll be available on our website and in other ways that we communicate externally. Secondarily, we're right in the midst of some massive strategic planning internally, and part of that planning, so it's about what's our brand vision, what are the strategic business goals that we need to be working towards to achieve that vision, and rather than publicize, rather than work towards 8 of these KPIs plus a whole bunch of financial ones, we're actually simplifying that, and we're going to have one financial KPI, one environmental KPI, one social KPI, so true triple bottom line for ease of communication with these other ones underneath with more detail. So that has yet to come. We just have been talking about what those KPIs are. Just this past week, we identified them. And so you're just asking us as this is unfolding. And I would say check back with us in about 6 months or so for some hot news off the press. 2 more right here. More? Yes. Oh, I didn't see you here.
I have a question, kind of tagging on to the price point question a little bit. What your sense of the landscape is for available product at lower price points, maybe by other brands, just from some of your networking connections. Not that EILEEN Fisher is responsible for those options, but just your sense of what the influence you had might be and what's kind of emerging, if anything. I think EILEEN Fisher has some real privilege in terms of being able to do this work at the price points you can do it, and I'm curious about what happens when you can't charge that much.
And you have to tell us who you are, Adele. It's very exciting for me.
I'm Adele Matern. I work with EILEEN Fisher a little bit on a natural dye project in Mumbai. We do some alternative textile product development and sourcing. And again, at an expensive level, so I'm curious about kind of what's happening down at a different market tier.
Great, and then the guy right behind you has a question.
Simeon Chapin, BSECU. I have a question about the other side of the price point equation. The public company traded, what the conversations with investors is like in terms of ownership, and how those conversations are going in this new vision for a sustainable EILEEN Fisher.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take that one first because it's easy. We're a privately held company, and we are an ESOP, so we're 40% employee owned. Yeah, that's cool, right? And then in terms of price point, I'm going to say the brand that everybody loves to rag on. H&M is actually doing a lot of really cool stuff in the sustainability arena. Yes, they're a fast fashion company, and that has to be acknowledged. But they're really active in the textile fiber recycling place. They're really working very hard, investing a lot of money in that. And on organic cotton, they're doing a huge amount in terms of organic cotton and other fibers. So I would just say that there is stuff happening at the lower price point, and you have to look for it. take it or leave it. But that's one brand that immediately comes to mind is actually doing some good stuff. Gap is doing some good stuff. Yeah, they are out there. Not what you were thinking of, right? Okay.
I find that a lot of brands aren't actually figuring out how to tell people they have it. I think Fisher's doing a great job about it.
Oh, thank you.
I wonder if some of the brands feel that talking about one portion of their offer negates the rest of it in the mind of the customer. And I feel like EILEEN Fisher's done a really good job of presenting things in increments.
Okay, so the difference is some brands will offer a collection of sustainable. In our case, we're really trying to embed it throughout, which is absolutely true. So that is the difference between us and some other brands. They both have their pluses and minuses, you know? And maybe this will be the last one.
Yes.
Yeah. Make it a good one. No pressure.
A guy thumb in the eye question. A lot for decades. A lot of what I wear is secondhand. Has its downsides. Somebody will say, you know, you don't strike me as an Abercrombie guy. And I'll say, do I strike you as a free shirt guy? As I'm listening to you talk about the extensive cost of production and the carbon footprint and all the rest, I just wonder if you've ever considered leasing clothes.
Oh, such a good question. Well, there's a member of my team who would kiss your feet right now. She is so hot on this idea, and it keeps coming up. And I would say that we're definitely talking about all possibilities. But that's not something that you'll see in the near future. Right now, we're working on just getting what we do already right, and then thinking about the future of fashion. What does it really mean? Do we need to own our stuff in the same way that we now no longer have to own our cars and own a lot of our property? So it's a great question and one that is definitely being tossed around. So thank you very much.
Amy, I know you have to run. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
From us at VBSR, we want to give you just a little token of our appreciation. This is handpicked from the person who runs the VBSR marketplace.
Cool.
So we have specially picked out for you designer cards, thank you cards, things of that, Vermont themed, and a gift basket from Luna Roma, who's a sustainable body works provider in the northern part of the state. So thank you very much.
Thank you.